Kicking off the list at number 10, Jade, aka Jennifer Lynn Hayden. She made her comic book debut in All-Star Squadron issue 25 back in 1983. She is the daughter of Green Lantern, Alan Scott, and Rose Canton, aka Thorn. Now after conceiving their children, Rose fled, fearing that she would harm them, right? So she gave them up for adoption and they were separated. Jenny Lynn, aka Jade, was adopted by a couple in Milwaukee in the suburbs. She didn't know she had a twin brother until her late teens. Surprise, nice. Once the two of them met up, they tried to join the Justice Society, but were rejected. But have no fear, the two of them joined other children of Justice Society and then formed Infinity Inc. And then Jade's powers are of course similar to her father's due to his exposure to magical energies. She's able to generate green energy and shape it into constructs according to her will, right? We all knew this. The sibling bond is a strong one. Jade and Todd both can communicate through a limited form of telepathy. It's a twin thing, you know? And guys, before we continue on to number 9, if you haven't already, go ahead and give us a thumbs up because it really goes a long way for us here at our Bat Cave. Also, huge news, we have another channel coming back after 3 years of running the show over here. Landon himself. He's not here, but if he was, he would be there. Landon himself is coming back with Landon Productions, premiering December 7th. So go and follow and then turn on your notifications because you don't want to miss what he's got coming. I've seen glimpses of it here at the studio and I'm pumped. Let's do it.
Is the Canada Goose gonna take it on?
I'm on top like I'm goddamn Mario, right? I'm just
Not today. Maybe tomorrow. Okay, is this real life right now?
Number 9, Zatanna. Appearing for the first time in Hawkman issue 4 back in 1964, Zatanna is the daughter of Zatara. She's a stage magician and she's really good. Like, really good, because you know, she has actual magic abilities. So she makes a pretty decent amount of money with these shows, which makes sense. I mean, if I had these powers, I would do the exact same thing. David Blaine who? Bye. Her father helped out the Justice Society and the Justice League of America numerous times. He was like the magic guy on the team, although Zatanna got the official membership. She gets her deeds done by speaking her spells backwards. Her mother is quite noteworthy as well, I'd say. So Zatanna thought she had died in a car crash after her birth, but actually, she's a Homo Magi, a race of magical humans that coexisted alongside Homo sapiens. And her name is Cindella. She's from another dimension. How neat. The classic made you think I was in a car accident so I can fulfill my destiny with my own magical species scenario. Nice, classic. We've all been there. Number 8, Lord Chaos. Making his debut in New Titans Annual issue 7 back in 1991, Lord Chaos is the son of Donna Troy and Terry Long. Now, Donna Troy may have a pretty confusing backstory, but her son, Robert Long, isn't as crazy. So let me explain. He was born with the powers of a god, right? So with that, he ended up going a little bit mad, right? A little bit crooked. So he ages himself, kills his own mother, and then of course becomes the dictator known as Lord Chaos. Nice, dude. Awesome. Great plan. Yeah, his name sounded evil for a reason, so you were onto something. Inspired by the original Titans team, a group of super teens going by the name Teen Titans go back in time to kill Donna before Lord Chaos, the now evil world conquering god, was born. Not a bad idea. We love time travel, let's do it. But here's the fun part, Lord Chaos goes back with them in order to prevent them from killing his mother / him. Gotcha, there he goes. So Robert was still born, but thankfully the Titans of Myth stepped in and stripped the mother and child of these godlike powers. The Titans of Myth bringing along Lord Chaos, stating he will either learn or cease to be. Learn or cease to be. This sounds like my grade 12 math teacher. He'll either learn or he'll cease to be. Now look at me, ceasing to be. Sorry, Mr. Lake.
Number 7, Harold Jordan, aka the Power Ring. Hailing from Earth 3, a universe where the morality of most heroes and villains are flipped, we have Harold Jordan, a feeble and cowardly man who worked as a janitor at Ferris Aircraft. Wielding the Ring of Volthoom, a ring that feeds off his fear and panic instead of willpower, Harold was an incredibly powerful crime lord and a member of the crime syndicate. Giving him powers similar to all other lanterns, he had the ability to create hard-like constructs. However, there was one major drawback that he realized during his time with the syndicate. He realized that although the ring was giving him the power he had always dreamed of, it was slowly killing him and he could never summon the courage or will to remove it himself thanks to his cowardice nature. During a fight with the Injustice League, Harold is finally freed from the ring. However, it did cost him his life as he had his arm ripped clean off his body by Sinestro. Although he physically died, his consciousness was actually transferred to the Green Realm, a world made completely out of concentrated fear, and he still lives on to this day, holding on to the hope that his world can one day be saved. Making his first appearance in 2013's Justice League Volume 2 number 23 as part of the New 52 DC Universe, why not give his story a read for yourself? Number 6. Jessica Cruz. During the crime syndicate's rule on Prime Earth, Jessica Cruz is unwillingly and forcefully chosen to be the next and final wielder of the Ring of Volthoom thanks to her PTSD and debilitating anxiety. Completely under control of the ring, she was forced to attack her hometown, but thanks to Batman and the other Justice League and all their kind words, she was able to overcome the power of the ring and take control fully. Under the tutelage of Hal Jordan, she was fully taught how to control her ring and eventually mastered the use of it. Unfortunately killed by the Black Racer during the events of the Darkseid War after jumping in the path of the Black Racer to save the Flash, she was freed from the Power Ring's control as it was completely destroyed alongside her. Impressed by her ability to overcome fear, she was then tracked down, resurrected, and given a Green Lantern ring, making her the Earth's newest Green Lantern alongside her soon-to-be crime-fighting partner, Simon Baz. Now, the two didn't always get along, however, after being forced to work together after Hal merged their power battery into one, the two did learn to accept each other's differences and work together after many close calls. Check out Jessica Cruz as Power Ring and the Green Lantern for yourself, starting with 2014's Justice League Volume 2 number 30.
Number 5. Helena Wayne. While Helena Wayne might not even exist in the main continuity, at least not yet, although she's definitely been there before, that hasn't held her back from being one of the most extraordinary and capable Bat family members from the multiverse. On Earth 2, or one of the Earth 2s, because there's kind of two Earth 2s, Helena ends up taking up the mantle of her father, becoming the new Batman. She wears colors similar to Batwoman, red and black, but decides to keep the mantle as is, as opposed to changing it to match her own gender identity. Helena lives up to the name too, and while we don't get to see too much of her in terms of her capability, just knowing Helena Wayne from the comics and from both Earth 2s, I can imagine she would not only do her father proud, but also potentially end up surpassing him in terms of her capabilities, having learned herself from the best. This version of Helena also trained under Bruce as his Robin and was there with him when he died, doing her best to defend her father before the building that he was in exploded. Number 4. Dick Grayson. Dick Grayson was Batman's first Robin and would end up taking up the mantle of Batman after Bruce Wayne's supposed death at the hands of Darkseid. In reality, Batman wasn't dead, but had simply kind of been blasted through time. Dick did such a good job with the mantle that even when Batman was revealed to have survived the events of Final Crisis and he returned, he actually didn't make Dick hang up the cape and cowl. Instead, in the one-shot Batman the Return, Bruce asks Dick to stay on and operate as Batman in Gotham in his stead, while he heads out to manage Batman Incorporated, which was pretty cool. I feel like you know you did a good job as Batman when you get the stamp of approval from Bruce, which is definitely what Dick got as Batman and what Damian got working as Grayson's Robin. And you definitely are considered to be trusted when Bruce gives you Gotham to look after, which is definitely the city closest to his own heart. Number 3. Superman. When Superman ended up swapping powers or lack thereof with Batman in 2003's Superman/Batman, Superman proved to be the one who was better. Batman with Superman's powers ended up kinda losing his grip on reality. He believed that he could hear his parents' voices and became super violent in his fight for justice. The other heroes of Earth attempted to convince Batman to swap back his powers with Clark and let him help them, but he refused. In the end, it was up to Superman as Batman to stop him, which, even without powers, he did. He ended up luring him back to Earth and employing the help of fellow colleague, friend, and hero Zatanna. While Zatanna is the one behind luring Batman to Earth with illusions of his parents and is the one who reverses the swap, in the end even Bruce admits that Superman did a great job as him, suggesting that the swap was about more than powers as Superman behaved and acted just as Bruce would have in his position, and did whatever it took, putting himself in danger to ensure the world was safe. Number 2. Batman 1 Million. Batman 1 Million is of course from the future, way in the future. He hails from the alternate future known as DC 1 Million, coming from year 85,300. That's right, 85,300. What a year. There he guards the galaxy's most dangerous criminals who are held within a prison on Pluto. This Batman's identity is unknown to us, but we do know a bit of his backstory. He was one of the thousands of victims who was forced as a kid to watch the death of his parents at the hands of villain Zaron, while others were driven driven to madness or took their own life. This hero instead was inspired to make sure an act like this never happened again, taking up the mantle of Batman. Batman 1 million being from the future has a unique physiology which grants him superhuman abilities such as telepathy. He also has future tech and off the charts IQ of over 1,000, not actually possible if you know how IQs work, and was one of the heroes who helped to save the Earth from the traitor Starman and the plague that he had unleashed. Number 1. Terry McGinnis. What would this list be without Terry McGinnis? As Batman's direct protege in the future, Terry definitely deserves our number 1 spot, I think. He also was designed to be the next Batman, and so not only has the training and experience needed, learning from an older and wiser Bruce Wayne himself, but also genetically was made to become the best Batman possible. In fact, you could even argue because he grew up with his parents still alive that he might be a more whole Batman. Terry was the product of Project Batman Beyond, headed by Amanda Waller, who actually snuck Bruce Wayne's DNA into his conception with nanotech that would basically rewrite Terry's dad's genetic code to match Bruce's, making Terry, in a weird way, kinda Bruce's son / half clone. Waller hired Phantasm, aka Andrea Beaumont, to then kill Terry's parents after they left the movie theater with their son, trying to also orchestrate the same origin story for Terry to help motivate him to become a hero. However, in the end, Andrea refused to go through with it, and so Terry got to live his life with his parents, alive. Although it should be noted, his parents did end up getting divorced, giving Terry a different kind of struggle in life. Also, although his father wouldn't end up being assassinated by Beaumont at that time, he would later on die tragically, so still has tragedy in his past. He's a hero. All heroes, I feel like, have tragedy in their past at some point.
Number 10. The Super Enemies. Starting off our list today with a dark Justice League with no comic origins comes the Super Enemies, an alternate universe version of the Super Friends devoted to the cause of deceit, injustice, and terror. The team consists of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Robin, Aquaman, Zan, Jaina, and Gleek. However, they have no morals and are just evil mirrored versions of the Super Friends. In the episode they're featured in, the Super Friends meet these evil duplicates in the Hall of Evil, which is their Hall of Justice. The Super Enemies frequently taunt the authorities, who are powerless to stop them, although the civilian police are actually equipped to just straight up take them down, as they have kryptonite lasers to stop evil Superman. The Superman of the Super Friends universe first met them when he was mysteriously transported into their universe while trying to stop a volcano from erupting, while their Superman was transported into the Super Friends universe. As Superman tried to escape from these Super Enemies and the military armed with kryptonite weapons, the evil Superman was transported to the real universe to fight the Super Friends. Superman Prime ended up getting an antimatter flask that switched them back, which was good news for everyone. And then later on, Lex Luthor organized his own Legion of Doom to be the real anti-Justice League, and it had a much better name. Check out the one-off appearance of this evil team in 1979 Super Friends episode Universe of Evil. Number 9. Conglomerate. The Justice League doesn't always have to consist of the same roster. I mean, don't get me wrong, I am a huge Batman and Superman fan, but there is also a smaller and less powerful team called Justice League International, and Mark Waid and Rod Wiggum had them face their evil duplicates in 1992. In the previous story, Booster Gold had just left the JLI to found his own corporate-sponsored team called the Conglomerate. Now that didn't work out too well, and the owner decided to pull new heroes out of another reality to form a new conglomerate of Deadeye, who's an alternate Green Arrow, Fiero, an alternate Fire, Frostbite, aka Ice, Elastaman, aka Elongated Man, Element Man, aka Metamorpho, Scarab, an alternate Blue Beetle, and Slipstream, an alternate Flash. The conglomerate decided to challenge the JLI to a quote-unquote friendly competition that quickly turned violent when they realized the new conglomerate were all from Quard in evil antimatter world. The JLI managed to get them back into their own world, but it was a very close call to say the least. Check out the first appearance of the conglomerate in 1991's Justice League Quarterly number 1, or feel free to skip ahead to 1992's Justice League Quarterly number 8 for the fight of a lifetime. Number 8. Flashpoint. In an effort to stop his mother's murder, Barry Allen created the Flashpoint timeline, a significantly darker reflection of the main DC universe and one of my favorite DC storylines to date. In this timeline, Thomas Wayne becomes Batman after Bruce is killed instead of him, Wonder Woman is like a tyrannical ruler of the Amazons and is locked in a crazy war with Aquaman because she killed his wife, and Superman is nowhere to be found, which means the Justice League technically doesn't exist, and honestly, what's darker than that? Probably a decent amount because this is only number 8, but anyways. If you're not familiar with this timeline, then I highly recommend you check it out for yourself. It is such a good one. All I'll say is that by the end of the series, several major characters are dead, and then in the expanded universe of the Flashpoint timeline, even more characters are revealed to be dead. It's just nuts. Thankfully, Barry managed to fix things before it was too late, but that wasn't enough to erase the Flashpoint timeline completely. Because of that, the DC universe is still dealing with the events of Flashpoint even to this day. Give it a read for yourself, starting with 2011's Flashpoint Volume 2, number 1. Number 7. 7, the Crime Society. Hailing from Earth 3 comes the Crime Society of America, but not to be confused with the Crime Syndicate of America, who we may or may talk about later on. Consisting of Johnny Quick II, Owlman II, Power Ring, Superwoman, Ultraman, and a few others, this team of villains is basically just evil doppelgangers of the Justice League and the Justice Society. The Crime Society encountered and fought the Challengers, consisting of Donna Troy, Jason Todd, Kyle Rayner, and Bob the Monitor, and the Jokester. After the Challengers and the Jokester escaped to another universe, the Crime Society were offered a place among Monarch's transdimensional army, which they accepted, of course. The Crime Society went on to fight on Earth 51 and battle the Monitors. When Superboy Prime subsequently caused the destruction of Earth 51's reality, it's unknown if any of the Crime Society were able to actually survive that. Now while we're waiting to hear their fate, why not check out their story for yourself, starting with 2007's 52, number 52. Number 6, Kingdom Come Justice League. In 1996, Alex Ross and Mark Waid teamed up to create the miniseries Kingdom Come. This miniseries was set in a near future where the traditional heroes of the past came together to stop the brutal superheroes of the new generation. The new Justice League of elderly but still very strong heroes like Superman and Green Lantern set up a prison to hold rogue heroes and supervillains alike. Unfortunately, the Gulag erupted in a riot between metahumans that threatened to destroy the entire world, and that caused, let's just say, a little bit more trouble for these geriatric heroes. In an act of desperation, the United Nations launched several nuclear bombs over the Gulag site. Batman and Wonder Woman deactivated 2 of them, but one of them was still primed and falls over the battlefield. Superman attempts to stop the bomb, but Marvel throws him back and stops the bomb himself, detonating it prematurely over the Gulag, killing a lot of the League, Cavalry, and many of the inmates as well. What makes the storyline so dark is that throughout the story, the Justice League struggle to follow their own morals, even as they impose their own brand of justice on a very unhappy world. Batman in particular sided with Lex Luthor to quote-unquote liberate mankind from the Justice League. In the end, Superman saw his failure, but only at the cost of thousands of lives. Check out the entire miniseries for yourself, starting with 1996's Kingdom Come, number 1.
Number 5, Injustice League. Okay, so we have the Crime Syndicate of America, but there was also a team of villains put together to fight that team of villains. So, sort of technically making these villains heroes, but also not really because they're still villains. Right? The important information here is that the Injustice League, at least the one I'm referring to, was formed to combat the Crime Syndicate of America from Earth 3. The team's villainous members included Bizarro, Black Manta, Black Adam, Catwoman, Deathstroke, Sinestro or Parallax, Captain Cold, and they were formed and led by Lex Luthor. The team first appeared in Forever Evil number 3 in January of 2014 when the Crime Syndicate of America invaded the Prime Earth universe and tried, and very nearly did, take over the world.
At number 4 we have the Injustice Syndicate. I know, lots of groups with Syndicate and Injustice in their names. Well, that's because this evil version of the Justice League actually exists as a sort of combination between the Injustice League and the Crime Syndicate, both of which are included in this list respectively. Appearing in Batman the Brave and the Bold, in the episode called Deep Cover for Batman, Batman manages to travel to their evil dimension and infiltrate their operations disguised as Owlman. He sees that this group comprises of an evil version of himself, along with other evil alternate versions of other heroes he knows and works with. While eavesdropping, Batman learns of their plans to, you know, destroy other universes entirely, which of course he feels is something he needs to put a stop to. And it can't wait, naturally. So he decides to take all of them on himself, and because he's Batman, and it is his TV show after all, he wins. Those universes can thank him later.
Number 3, Kyle Rayner. Another Prime Earth inhabitant, Kyle Rayner is the 4th human Green Lantern and one of the most powerful to ever exist, having also been a White Lantern and a host of Parallax and Ion. In addition to his green power ring, Rayner was actually chosen to wield the other 6 rings of the emotional electromagnetic spectrum, making him the Hybrid Lantern for quite some time, before he was overwhelmed by the sheer power and all his rings aside from his green and orange ones were destroyed. During the rise of the Third Army, we see Kyle prepare for a fight with the Guardians of the Universe, and he sets out to master the powers of all the other rings, beginning with the Red of Rage. Later during the events of Lights Out, we see him wield the sheer power of the White Light to protect himself against the Relic. However, this did cause the release of the Relic. After an insane journey and a battle with Relic alongside the other lanterns of every single color, Raider is able to pull the beast through the source wall, causing them to both disappear until it was confirmed that Relic transformed into a part of the wall. Thought to be dead, the other lanterns returned to their homes, but the Guardians stuck around to see Kyle emerge from the wall, and after learning how, it all works and where their energy supply comes from, the Guardians decide that the information he knows is much too vital and that Kyle's survival has to be kept a secret. Now, obviously there is so much more to Kyle Rayner's story, seeing that he made his first appearance back in 1994's Green Lantern Volume 3 number 48, so I highly recommend you read it for yourself, or maybe start with his New 52 appearance in 2011's Green Lantern New Guardians number 1 if you're looking for a more recent storyline. Number 2. John Stewart. Following in the footsteps of his predecessor Guy Gardner, John Stewart decided to forego a secret identity as the third Green Lantern of Earth. Once an architect, John was selected by the Guardians of the Universe as Hal Jordan's backup after Guy Gardner was seriously injured. Since his first appearance all the way back in 1971's Green Lantern Volume 2 number 87, we've seen John team up with some of the most powerful beings in the universe, including the Justice League, Dark Stars, Indigo Tribe, and even the United States Marine Corps. Although Hal was unsure if John was fit to be a Lantern at first because of his attitude toward authority figures, he has since proven himself time and time again to be worthy of the name Green Lantern, having played a massive role in the Sinestro Corps Wars, the War of Light, the Blackest Night, and the War of the Green Lanterns. However, he has had to do some things that have made him doubt his will, the biggest being the times he's had to destroy not one, but 2 worlds for the greater good. Now, if you're not familiar with John Stewart as the Green Lantern, I highly recommend you check out his story for yourself. He was actually the first Green Lantern I had ever heard of, so he does hold a very special place in my heart. And finally, number 1, we have Hal Jordan. Definitely the most well-known version of the Green Lantern, and the most deserving of the number 1 spot in my eyes. Hal Jordan is the first human to ever become a member of the Green Lantern Corps, and has been regarded on multiple occasions as the greatest Green Lantern of all time. For your sake, I won't go too deep into his backstory and all his accomplishments because we could be here for literal days, but I'll do my best to give you the highlights. Before becoming the Green Lantern, Hal was an Air Force pilot and was chosen by a green power ring for his ability to overcome great fear, like all the other Green Lanterns out there, which led him to becoming the Galactic Police Officer of Sector 2814. As one of the founding members of the Justice League, we've seen him take on the likes of pretty much every major villain in the DC Comics universe. One of Hal's most defining moments as a Lantern, and honestly one of my favorite moments in comic book history, was during the Blackest Night, when Hal became the White Lantern. After Necron separates Sinestro from the entity, Hal actually bonds with it and uses its power to transform the resurrected heroes into White Lanterns, dubbing them the White Lantern Corps, and they defeat Necron by reviving the Black Hand, severing Necron's link to the living plane. Basically, he became one of the most powerful beings in the universe and completely annihilated darkness itself. If you want to hear more about Hal Jordan, his origins and all his adventures, please let me know in the comments below, and maybe we'll dedicate an entire video to him. But in the meantime, why not read all about him for yourself, starting with 1959's Showcase number 22.
Alright, at number 10 we have the very silly but nonetheless evil Super Enemies. In the 1970s animated TV show Super Friends, there's an episode in 1979 called Universe of Evil, where Superman travels to an alternate universe to meet the evil counterparts to the Super Friends, very creatively named the Super Enemies. And the team is made up of all those bad guys we've all known so well and grown up with. Like Aquaman with an eye patch, and tinted red Batman, and oh, who could forget the iconic alien monkey Gleek. What a trailblazing team of supervillains they were. But as much as I roast them, they do actually pose a decent threat to Superman in this storyline, to the point where they team up with the military armed with kryptonite weapons, and even bring in their own version of Superman, giving our Superman a good old run for his money. But luckily, Superman Prime finds something called an antimatter flask, which turns all the super enemies back to being good again. Thank God Aquaman retires that eye patch and is no longer so intensely menacing looking. What a relief.
Number 9. Justice League of Assassins. Unfortunately, this evil Justice League didn't stick around too long. Being first introduced in Superman Volume 4, number 15 in March 2017, the Justice League of Assassins on Earth 14 were a group of augmented, mostly non-superpowered soldiers led by the obviously powerful Superman. The team was made up of Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Flash, Batman, Harley Quinn, and Green Lantern. With the exception of Superman, their powers relied mainly on weapons and technology, but primarily they used advanced firearms. Ultimately, they were all slaughtered, with this Superman being kidnapped by Prophecy, which is a shame, because this team looked super cool and they seemed to inhabit a pretty dark and grim looking post-apocalypse. Could have been very interesting.
At number 8, we have the Conglomerate. This group is basically a bizarro version of the Justice League created by Booster Gold. The group is formed after Booster's departure from the Justice League International due to a lack of respect from his peers. When Booster first fails to bring together a competent group of heroes to form the first iteration of the Conglomerate, someone named Claire Montgomery comes in to manage the group. With her, she brings along the likes of Deadeye, an alternate Green Arrow, Fiero, a guy with fire powers, Frostbite, an ice power guy, Elastaman, a stretchy man, Element Man, much like Metamorpho, Scarab, a knockoff of Blue Beetle, and Slipstream, a dollar store Flash. When they engage in a small friendly skirmish with the Justice League International, the fight quickly turns serious, and everyone learns at once that these new members have actually been brought from an antimatter world called Quard, and they're basically just entirely evil, and always had been. Luckily, the JLI take them down, but it's a close one.
Number 7, Squadron Sinister. This isn't so much an evil alternate Justice League as this team actually appears in the Marvel universe. But I'm gonna count it because I'm just stubborn like that. The original Squadron Sinister was created as a sort of obvious play on DC Comics Justice League characters Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, and The Flash, with the characters Hyperion, Nighthawk, Dr. Spectrum, and the hilariously named Wizard, respectively. The team was created by the Grand Master after he encountered the Squadron Supreme, and they first appeared in Avengers number 69 when they were pitted against the Avengers in a game between the Grand Master and Kang the Conqueror. They're bad guys who are counterparts to 4 members of the Justice League. I gotta stop justifying my reasons, they're on the list. Argue with me down below if you don't like it.
Alright, at number 6 we have the Justice Lords. Appearing in the animated series Justice League in the episode titled A Better World, this evil team is led by a radicalized Superman. Radicalized because he witnesses Lex Luthor murder the Flash and threaten nuclear war. So, Superman decides he'd abandon the typical hero's code of conduct and kill the bald tyrant himself. And in this alternate universe, Lex Luthor isn't just some super rich supervillain working away and hiding, he's actually worked his way to becoming the President of the United States. So, after his death, there is a power vacuum to be filled. And who would be better rulers than this evil alternate Justice League? No one. They didn't think so anyway, so they take over and put in place a totalitarian government with the justification being that they are protecting humanity from itself. And they start calling themselves the Justice Lords, which, I mean, you should sort of know you're the bad guys when the word Lord is in your title. Luckily, the real Superman is able to catch on and take them out of power before anything goes too far.
Number 5, Dawn Allen. You can probably guess this one by the name, yes. The daughter of super speedster Barry Allen, aka The Flash. She made her comic book debut with Adventure Comics 373. She's a fun one. She's actually born in the future, during the first crisis. See, this was in the 30th century before the Legion stuff in the 31st century, right? So they had to hide their powers. They also go by the name of the Tornado Twins, for good reason. They both obtained a small amount of super speed from Barry. So they rescued Wally West, and it was so badass, like they knew what they were doing. Just because they aren't as fast doesn't mean that they don't know how to get the job done. So the twins worked side by side, and when they combined their efforts, they were unstoppable. I mean, just these two crazy tornadoes coming at you. I mean, can you be more intimidating? I don't know. Number 4, Bruce Wayne Jr. He's part of the Super Sons, so I have to include him in this list, obviously. Bruce Wayne Jr. We go on over to the 1965 version of Bruce Wayne Jr. making his debut in World's Finest, issue 154. He's the son of Catherine Kane, and as you could have guessed, Bruce Wayne Sr. Yep. He's part of a duo called the Super Sons, and that name is pretty perfect for the gig. Definitely belongs here. Sided by Superman Jr., the two grew up together. I mean, the opening of their issues show them both reading up about their dads and all their crazy achievements. They even get married on the same day. I mean, these are life goals. I mean, I hope me and my super buddies do this one day. Or just me and my buddies get married one day, that'd be nice. My favorite part is seeing the two interact, right? Like Superman's powers, there's one point where Superman's not letting baby Batman down from a teeter-totter. And he's like, nah, I'm not letting you down till you admit that my dad's cooler than yours. And he's like, alright, I guess. And comes back down all shameful. Bruce Wayne Jr. actually grew up forgetting about his father's identity somehow, and then when he was reminded of it, he tried to capture a crook while disguised as Batman. I mean, yeah, if my dad was like, hey, I'm Batman, I'd be like, okay, what size is that? I can probably squeeze in there. It didn't go well for him, you know, the first shot. He didn't gather any evidence. He just went in raw. It wasn't great. So after an argument with his father, Bruce Jr. left to meet up with his other man, Clark Kent Jr. See, they're homies. They don't go too far for a reason. I would watch a buddy cop show with these two just saving people and smashing things up, but they have to be kids. They have to be moody little kids, and they have to require little super naps in the middle of heated battles. That's the deal.
Number 3, Red Racer. While his existence in the comics was a bit short-lived, Red Racer is definitely one of the coolest Flashes that we've ever got to meet. He was not just a science nerd like so many of the Flashes are, but was also a comic book nerd. The best kind? I think so. He made sure to get President Superman of Earth 23 to sign his Superman comic upon meeting him. Red Racer is the fastest man alive on Earth 36 and part of that world's Justice 9 team. He ended up joining a multiversal sort of Justice League that included Earth 23's Superman, Earth 11's Aquawoman, and Captain Carrot of Earth 26. This team is known as Justice Incarnate in the comics. Red Racer also did not hesitate when he had to give up his life in order to save others, and he also proved how intelligent he was at that time when he rapidly built a receiver version of Ultima Thule, a sort of interdimensional spaceship that is made out of frozen music. Doing so cost him his life, but enabled the rest of his teammates to save the day. Oh, and he also did it really fast, and it's supposed to be a thing that takes like thousands of years. And I'm pretty sure he also did it without like any blueprint. He just was like, yeah, I'll just build it. I'll die, but I got you guys. So cool. What a hero. Number 2, Red Death. Because Batman basically does everything better, including being the Flash. Or well, this is the Dark Multiverse and the Dark Knights, so I guess I should say he does it the worst in terms of him being a bad guy, but he also does it the best in terms of what he is capable of. Bruce Wayne as the Dark Multiverse Flash, the Red Death, can actually use his Speed Force powers to create constructs. If you are struck with one of these bat-like constructs, you'll end up withering to the point of death, aging thousands of years almost instantly. So this is probably the most deadly version of the Flash that we've ever seen in the comics. Red Death hails from Negative Earth 52, back when there were negative Earths and we had a dark multiverse. RIP Dark Multiverse. Number 1, Wally West. Obviously, who is one of the best Flashes around? None other than Wally West, the once new version of the Flash everyone fell in love with and then were deprived of for years. However, Wally is back now, and not in a way where he's forced to be a villain or to be miserable. He actually gets to be a hero and be happy in the comics, which is really all most Wally fans have wanted for him and his family this whole time. Wally West is the nephew of Iris West and therefore by marriage Barry Allen. For a time, Wally operated as Barry's sidekick, Kid Flash, but would eventually become a hero all his own. Wally is considered to be one of the fastest Flashes to have ever existed, and he also seems to have learned somewhat from Barry's and the other Flash's mistakes in the past, making him sometimes a little bit wiser by comparison. At least a bit wiser than Barry. Number 10, Jim Gordon. Jim Gordon ended up being recruited as a new Batman after the fallout of Endgame in the comics. Jim wasn't really in a great place to be commissioner as he had just recovered from the effects of Joker venom, which had left him unhinged and violent, initially trying to kill his friend Batman. But at the same time, he was also still someone that the government and the police saw as being extremely useful. He had years of service under his belt, he knew Gotham like the back of his hand, and with Batman and Joker both believed to be dead, Gotham and its people were looking for a new man to take up the Batman mantle. Enter Jim Gordon. The government gave him training, muscle implants, and a new tech-based armor mech suit that also happened to have at least semi-sentience. Jim named the suit Rookie and would both wear and work alongside it, in tandem with the police and government as a new, weirdly svelte Batman. That suit was tight. Of course, you could argue that Jim wasn't great as Batman, considering when Bruce returned, he kinda had some messes to clean up. But as a Batman who worked with the law and had a more intimate understanding of the justice system, it could also be argued that Gordon, in his own way, was better. Number 9, Azrael. Depending on your opinion of how best to deal with criminals, there are some who think Azrael did a bang-up job as Batman and even would like to see him return to the mantle. Azrael ended up acting as Batman after Bruce Wayne had his back broken by Bane. Batman ends up leaving Jean-Paul Valley in charge while he works on healing up and recovering. At first, Azrael seemed like a pretty good replacement, but he quickly gets wrapped up in his mission to bring criminals to justice. Azrael is considered to be more brutal and violent than Batman, going so far as to even kill criminals who oppose him, and not backing down when Bruce finally returns to take the Batman mantle back. Bruce even has to call in backup from his Robins to take down Azrael in the end. While Jean-Paul was definitely a different kind of Batman, he was a kind of different that some prefer. And friends, before we move on to our next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more seemingly impossible lists like this one, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Damian Wayne. And if you like supers who are not afraid to kill, do I have a Batman for you. Damian Wayne in the alternate future that is Earth 666 ends up becoming Batman after the current Batman, Dick Grayson, is killed by exploding Jokerfish. With Grayson dead, Damian believes that the only way to fight against crime is to go to extremes, believing that killing is the only way. Needless to say, this stance creates a lot more problems for Gotham, and especially for Commissioner Barbara Gordon, who becomes kind of a sworn enemy to Batman. In the end, Damian as Batman does bring about the destruction of Gotham and possibly the destruction of the world, but in a way, he was still super successful in what he set out to do. Damian created a bargain with the devil, trading his soul in exchange for becoming the eternal protector of Gotham, which is what happened. Of course, as with any wish or deal with the devil, there's always a twist. And in this case, the twist is that Gotham ends up being destroyed due to a nuclear strike. Still, Damian does protect Gotham till the very end of its existence. What more can you ask from Batman? Other than to, I guess not let Gotham be destroyed, which is a fair ask, I suppose.
Number 7. Jo Mallene's Green Lantern. Sojourner Mallene was granted a Green Lantern ring after she was unceremoniously fired from the New York City police force. She became the Green Lantern of an unnumbered sector, with her first main job being in the City Enduring, an alien planet city inhabited by 3 previously warring races. She's tasked with solving the city's first murder in 500 years. It's pretty serious. Jo's ring recharges over time instead of requiring a battery, which, as a trade-off, makes it a bit weaker. It's still a Green Lantern ring though, so she ain't someone to mess with. This non-reliance also proves really useful when the central power battery explodes at a Green Lantern meeting Jo was running late to, taking out a bunch of lanterns and depowering a whole heck of a lot more of them. She took charge here like a true hero should. She has been teased to be taking over the role of Green Lantern. Obviously. Number 6. Jackson Hyde's Aquaman. Jackson Hyde is actually the son of one of Aquaman's main villains, Black Manta. But luckily, he fights for justice, hence being part of this video. As Aqualad, with his hydrokinesis and Atlantean powers, he has been a part of the Teen Titans, Young Justice, and has fought alongside Aquaman against his own father, and has even temporarily stepped into the mantle of Aquaman in one of his major story arcs. He has proven himself capable, if not a little undisciplined, and he, alongside Jo Mallene, Jace Fox, Yara Flor, and John Kent, was part of the alternate Justice League in Future State, so we know he has the means to take over the role. Just like the last two, he is poised to take over the position of Aquaman, allegedly, in the upcoming Justice League. Number 5. Metamorpho. Rex Mason was a globe-trotting adventurer and archaeologist who encountered the Orb of Ra on one of his journeys. This orb mutated him just a little horribly, but alongside the mutations, it also gave him the power to convert his body into any element. You ask me, it's a pretty fair trade-off. I would take it. Using the power to shapeshift his body into various forms using the elements, he became a hero. Now, Rex can stretch, bounce, elongate, control, and reshape his body as if it were made out of rubber or plastic. He can alter the shapes and consistencies of the elements he becomes and even combine them to form complex compounds. He has biofission, meaning that Rex can split his body into several copies of himself, each with the same powers. And lastly, he has a naturally occurring body armor, but it's a little redundant because, although Metamorpho's powers allow him to fight against evil, they also are a curse, keeping him trapped in a hideous form, unable to even die. He's not hideous, honestly. People are just kind of judgmental. Number 4, Stargirl. Starting off as Star-Spangled Kid of the team Stars and Stripes with her stepdad, Pat Duggan, after joining the JSA, Courtney Whitmore is given the Star Rod when Jack Knight decides to quit being Starman. To continue his legacy, eventually she officially declares herself as Stargirl. Now, as Star-Spangled Kid, Courtney used the Cosmic Converter Belt, which enhances a number of Courtney's abilities, such as her agility, durability, speed, stamina, and strength, as well as allowing her to create Star Blast from the stored energy of the belt. When she became Stargirl, she still kept this belt, but now she's using the Star Rod, which allows her to fly as well as absorb energy which she can project into various uses, such as blasts and force fields. Also, because the rod is attuned to her, it can receive mental commands from a distance, so she can do multiple different things here. pretty good. Number 3, Aztec. Okay, since we are talking about a character who has a lot to do with Aztec mythology, I will 110% mess up some pronunciation here, just a forewarning. Uno, the man who would become Aztec, was trained from birth by the mysterious Q Society, which is a secret organization dedicated to providing a champion for Quetzalcoatl. His mission is to prepare for the eventual second coming of the dark god Tezcatlipoca. To help with that, Aztec's power comes from the Mask of Warriors, which has been handed down from warrior to warrior over the generations, with their consciousness becoming one with the mask, meaning Aztec can call upon the experience of his predecessors in any situation, which is incredibly helpful. The helmet bestows its wearer with a variety of abilities other than that though, including enhanced audio and visual systems like X-ray and infrared vision. It protects the wearer, increasing physical strength, and will even transfer full motor control over to the helmet if the wearer becomes unconscious. The armor can camouflage itself, turning it invisible or reducing the wearer's molecular density. The gauntlets contain energy blasters located in the palms, and launchers hidden in the wrists that can shoot wire nets, cables, or mini rockets. Kind of like Iron Man, the armor's chest piece acts as a power battery for the suit, and also allows the venting of highly destructive energy that can destroy a whole city block. The suit also allows him to fly and allows Aztec to travel through space. It also looks super cool. Number 2, Mr. Miracle. Mr. Miracle was Scott Free, who is the god of escape in the New Gods mythology. So that's already a high level of praise. A Genetian raised on Apocalypse, Scott and Big Barda left for Earth, where he used the skills he learned in escapology both as a performance artist and in the Justice League of America. So, obviously as a new god he has immortality, super strength, durability, and agility, but the fun part is his escapology. Scott can basically escape from most things, even in his sleep, and no, I'm not joking. He is aware of the unconscious procedures he's mastered and can modify them in their use with other skills to use new knowledge. He's also very proficient when it comes to making traps. It may not seem like an incredibly useful ability, but it is certainly unique and can be used in more instances than you may think, especially when on a team like the Justice League. And in at number 1 is the Phantom Stranger. First appearing in the first issue of his own self-titled comic all the way back in 1952, the Phantom Stranger is an immortal to the extent of even surviving having his own heart taken out of his body. The Phantom Stranger is a mysterious supernatural guide and specialist in the occult. He can travel across space and time at will, even to magical dimensions, including the realm of the just dead, the antechamber of souls, heaven, hell, apocalypse, and the realm occupied by the quintessence. All of which is something very few Justice League members can actually do. There's a lot that is just kind of not known about this character, which is a purposeful thing, but it's a really annoying thing for making a video on him on YouTube. In the New 52, he is apparently Judas Iscariot, roaming the earth trying to make up for the guilt of betraying Jesus. I don't know where that came from, it just kinda is the way it is. He is one of the most powerful magic users in DC Comics, with his use of magic being almost unmatchable, if not taken by surprise.
Number 10, we have Jason and Jenny Allen. Now if you're not familiar with this pair of twins, don't fret too much because there is little information about them out there. However, their control over the emotional electromagnetic spectrum makes them incredibly interesting, and that is why I included them on this list today. We get introduced to them in the Justice League Legacy storyline that takes place in an alternate future where the children of the Justice League fight off the darkness, a large mass of pure negativity that possesses the Justice League and causes the downfall of their world. As the kids of Barry Allen and Jessica Cruz, both Jason and Jenny possess green power rings, making them the Green Lanterns of this timeline. However, what really sets them apart is their ability to create hard-like constructs of different colors despite not possessing those power rings. With both possessing the potential to wield all the colors of the emotional spectrum, Jenny has shown the ability to create yellow, orange, and blue light constructs, and Jason has created red and blue light constructs as well, making them both some of the most adaptable lanterns out there. Now if you want to check them out for yourself, they appear for the first time in 2017's Justice League Volume 3, number 26. Coming in at number 9, we have Green Lantern from Earth 9. Sometime after the death of the second Atom on Earth 9, we are introduced to a sudden wave of superhuman champions, and among them is the heroine known as the Green Lantern or Lady of the Lantern. However, her origins are not really known, and there are actually 3 theories on who her secret identity is. The first says that she's the murdered archaeologist Lois Lane, and after her body was dumped in the Atlantic Ocean, she was found by mermaids or angels or something and was revived and given the powers that she has now. The second states that a pair of twin sisters, one good and one evil, fought a battle over some mystical powers. The good sister won and placed the mystical power in the lantern, and then she dedicated herself to fighting forces that make others suffer. The third and final, and probably the most probable in my opinion, is that she is the sorceress Zatanna, who is sent on a mission by the Dark Circle of Magicians to find the lantern. After many years, when she finally found it, she decided to keep it for herself, and well, the rest is kind of history. Either way, the mystery around her origins makes her all the more interesting, and man, I just really want to know more. Equipped with the Green Lantern, an old Chinese-style lantern suspended from a hook, she possesses the ability to teleport, travel dimensions, and even resurrect the dead for a short period of time so they can carry out any unfinished business before fully passing on. Designed by Dan Jurgen with the intent of creating a unique and very, very old Green Lantern, why not check her out for yourself in 1997's Tangent Comics Green Lantern #1. Coming in at number 8, we have Jade. As the daughter of the original Green Lantern and his foe Thorn, Jennifer Lynn Hayden has the ability to harness the power of the Starheart, which was the main power source of her father's powers. Making her first appearance back in 1983 in All-Star Squadron number 25, she briefly served as Earth 2's Green Lantern after she was given a power ring from Kyle Rayner when she briefly lost her powers. However, they were eventually restored to her during Rayner's brief tenure as the godlike being Ion. Like her father, she is capable of creating green hard-light objects thanks to the star mark on her palm, and she can fly. However, what really sets her apart from other lanterns is that she has no need to recharge her powers thanks to her connection to the Starheart, and she also shares powers with her mother as well. Thanks to these extra powers, she can manipulate plants at her will, and her skin actually contains chlorophyll, allowing her to use photosynthesis like a plant. She met an untimely death at the hands of Alexander Luthor Jr., however, while trying to stop him from tearing the universe into a multiverse, but was eventually resurrected by the Black Lantern Corps during the Blackest Night, and you know, that kind of led to her being killed again by Kyle Rayner by blowing her head off. Check out her origins for yourself, and well, why not let me know what you think in the comments below.
Number 7, Maxine Baker. The daughter of Buddy Baker, aka Animal Man, has quite the abilities. In the pre-Flashpoint era, Maxine Baker wasn't a huge character, right? But she of course picked up some of the powers from her father, those powers being the ability to tap into the life web and control it. And with the new 52, Maxine got bigger and badder. She became the avatar of the Red, which sounds a lot cooler already. I mean, come on. The Red is another name for the life web. So Maxine can control every animal on Earth as well. And that's not all. She's super powerful, guys. She can also control the elements and create this Eldritch Blast. It's no wonder most of the time people are trying to get a handle on her powers. I mean, even she struggles with them. Controlling animals would be a sweet gig, eh? Imagine the practical jokes. Oh my god. Number 6, Thunder. Making her first appearance in Outsiders Volume 3, Issue 1, Thunder is the daughter of Black Lightning and Lynn Stewart. So Anissa Pierce had a pretty nice deal with her father, okay? The deal was that if she graduated from college, only then can she consider a career in crime fighting. And the night of her graduation, that is exactly when she donned the costume. It didn't take long for her to get approached by Red Arrow, who offered her a position in the Outsiders. Her father though, her father is like, no, you have to resign from these crazy people, I don't like this. And of course she said, no way, Jose. And then, when Savick came sniffing around again, her father actually helped the team out and her. And this was a cool time. This was the first time they had actually seen each other in action. What a moment that would be, eh? So Anissa was trained by Nightwing in combat, nice. She's a trained doctor, nice, hence the whole education before kicking ass deal. That plus her abilities to increase the mass of her body and become like immovable, and super strength? Look out, you're toast.
Number 5. Yara Flor's Wonder Woman. Ayla was an Amazonian who left Themyscira and settled in Brazil, where she fell in love with a Brazilian river deity. You know, like you do. The child these two would create became the Amazonian Brazilian demigod Yara Flor. Living in an Amazonian village, they were attacked by agents of the Greek gods, and Ayla lost her life. But Yara was taken to Idaho by a woman named Renata, who became her adopted mother. After her return to Brazil, she gets magical golden boleadoras, meets a human she hits it off with, is stabbed with an arrow by Eros, who she falls in love with, and is taken to Mount Olympus, where she is trained, given gifts, and gets a Pegasus named Jerry. Nice. She's offered the role of becoming Hera's champion, but after learning of her true origins, she refuses, and after a lot of scuffling, she brings some Amazons to defeat those responsible for the de-lifing of her own mother. She has become Wonder Girl, and was Wonder Woman in that future state Justice League I keep talking about to defend my reason for putting these characters on this list. It will be cool to see her actually step into the role of Wonder Woman, if that's what happens. Number 4, John Kent. And last, but extremely not the least, apparently stepping into the role of Superman in the Justice League will be none other than his own son, Jonathan Samuel Kent. Look, it just makes sense. John obviously was a member of the League's reserves before this point, but taking over the role of his father would be a big step up if it is ultimately what comes to pass. The son of Clark and Lois Lane, Jonathan began fighting crime at the age of 10. John possesses all the same powers as his father, plus a solar radiation explosion thing that isn't really under his control. According to Batman, he actually has the potential to surpass his father's power levels thanks to his half-human physiology, which kind of makes no sense to me, but whatever. Jonathan actually became Superman when his father left Earth to go to War World, so he has had a bit of experience, which will hopefully help him if he does become the new Superman of the Justice League next month. And that covers every one of the characters teased to take over the respective roles in the League. A few of these characters are part of the future Justice League, so it remains to be seen what role exactly these few will play, and I may have doomed myself to be roasted in the comments, so there's that. Number 3, Hippolyta, or Hippolyta, or however you want to say it. Queen of Themyscira, she takes over the role of Wonder Woman in the Justice League in the Infinite Frontier storyline. Now, Diana isn't perished. Well, she is now, but not when her mother took over in the Justice League. Diana had ascended after defeating the Darkest Night, and with Hippolyta having dubbed Nubia as the newest ruler of Themyscira, she was pretty free to take on the role in the Justice League. It's interesting to see her interact with Aquaman, and the small amount of time her and the number 1 spot got to work together was also rather interesting. As an Amazonian, she possesses pretty much all the same powers as her daughter, just better because, you know, she's been around longer. Unfortunately, this whole thing didn't last very long with the whole death of the Justice League thing. Number 2, Naomi McDuffie. Joining the team just after our number 1 spot in Justice League Volume 4, number 63, Naomi McDuffie is a teenage energy-based hero who was actually sent to the Prime Earth from an alternate reality to be spared from this really crazy villain, Zumbado, who rules over her native Earth. While her powers are unstable and she hasn't quite learned a complete control over them yet, Powerhouse's powers are confirmed to be Omega level in nature, so that's enough to put her pretty high on this list. She basically transforms into a golden armored super-powered form, which gives her a kind of energy projection that she uses to enhance her punches, making them very super indeed, and she also uses them to fire energy blasts. Interestingly, Naomi can also augment magical powers, kind of opposite to how Superman is weakened by them. In her super form, she can fly and obviously has super strength and durability. Number 1, Black Adam? What? That's right, joining the Justice League in Volume 4, number 60 of the team's self-titled comic, thanks to an invite from Superman, it's my second favorite Adam other than myself. Teth Adam was an unwilling laborer back in ancient Egypt who received power from the wizard Shazam, just like that other guy in red with a lightning bolt. What was his name again? I forget. Black Adam actually loses his life, and after his resurrection was no longer powered by the wizard. Instead, he gained his power from 6 Egyptian deities: Shu, Horus, Amun, Sehuti, Aten, and Mehen. Funny how they happen to still spell it Shazam though, huh? And he still shouts Shazam to activate his powers too, naturally. He also makes for quite a great leader, being the ruler of the African nation of Kondak. However, he hasn't traditionally been a great team player, and well, the whole supervillain anti-hero thing doesn't really help his case either. I'm just interested to see where this goes, to be perfectly honest.
Number 10, Oliver Queen. During the Elseworlds story in CW's Arrowverse, we learned that Oliver Queen and the Flash have swapped bodies, or rather roles. Everyone seems to think that Oliver is Barry and that Barry is Oliver. Initially, although both heroes struggle to fit into the other's role, eventually the two are able to figure out what makes the other such a great hero and channel some of their energy. Oliver himself struggles as the Flash, but even when he's running into walls and misfiring Speed Force lightning, he still manages at least to catch the bad guy, which is pretty impressive. Even when he's doing a bad job, it's not that bad. And after Barry takes him under his wing, he actually becomes a pretty decent Flash by the end of this storyline. Considering how many people love Oliver Queen when it comes to the Arrowverse, with him being sort of the ultimate main character, because, you know, it's the Arrowverse, it wouldn't surprise me if people preferred that Queen remain the Flash, as then he'd get cool super speed powers permanently. Number 9. The Accelerated Man. From CW's Arrowverse in The Flash, we hear of an alternate version of the character from Earth 19. We don't have too much information on this alternate version of the Flash, but it has been suggested that they are a speedster who instead goes by the name the Accelerated Man. Earth 19's H.R. Wells, the alternate version of Star Labs director, founder, and lead scientist Harrison Wells, claims that he played a key role in helping the Accelerated Man to capture all of the metahuman criminals from their world at once, which honestly sounds pretty impressive. The Accelerated Man is also a speedster from the comics who hails from Earth 19, although that version of the character is a little bit different, though they do look pretty similar to the CW version. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, really quick, before we get there, make sure you click that like button. It does help us out and it lets us know that you want more good Flash content like this. Number 8. Iris West II. Iris currently goes by the name Impulse in the comics. She is the daughter of Wally West and Linda Park, who initially was lost when the New 52 started up. However, her dad remembered her existence and the family he had once had from the previous continuity, and he would end up seeking out Iris and her twin brother Jay. In the previous continuity, it was suggested that Iris could even grow up to become faster than her dad, Wally West, who is known for being one of the fastest speedsters of all time. So that's pretty impressive. However, in the current continuity, I don't think this has been established as something that could happen in Iris's future. However, we do know in Iris's future that she could go on to live to do her father, the Flash, proud, and while not an explicit version of the Flash, we have seen into a future in issue 771 of the Flash, where she goes on to become the new Kid Flash. And because I love Iris so much, I'm gonna count it because I just love her as a character. Number 7. Eobard Thawne. I know what you're thinking, hey, but isn't Eobard Thawne known as a villain and the Reverse Flash? In the main continuity, yes, but in the Dark Multiverse Flashpoint story, Eobard actually becomes the Flash, and what's more, he kinda becomes a hero as well. A dark, twisted, and messed up hero, hellbent on eradicating competing heroes of that universe, but a hero nonetheless. He succeeds in defeating Barry Allen and Flashpoint Batman, aka Thomas Wayne, and then sets out to change the world, shaping it into his version of perfect. This involves preventing Batman from ever becoming Batman, and instead creating his own superhero team. Number 6. Impulse. Okay, so Impulse isn't really the Flash. He's more associated with the Kid Flash name than the main Flash name, though he did at one point dress up as the Flash in order to buy time for Wally. Unfortunately, his very brief time impersonating the Flash wearing the costume was cut very short, as at this time Bart was without his powers and ended up being killed. Of course, this was still a very moving story involving Bart, who is probably the most loved member of the Flash family, with really only Iris and Jay West offering any potential competition there, in my opinion. Those two are a couple of super lovable cuties as Wally and Linda's kids. Also, despite being young, Bart Allen is still super powerful when he is powered. He can time travel, hop dimensions, has been shown to be fast enough to fend off and even beat Godspeed, and he can phase.
Coming in at number 5, we have Simon Baz. Mentioned briefly just a little bit ago, let's talk about the former street racer and car thief turned Green Lantern. After the horrible event that occurred at the World Trade Center, Simon and his family found themselves under extreme suspicion due to the color of their skin, leading him to be, bullied for most of his life. Despite these hardships, Simon was able to finish all of his schooling and eventually became an engineer. However, he was fired thanks to a financial crisis, and desperate for money, he turned to the streets and started street racing. One night, he accidentally stole a van full of explosives and a high-speed chase ensued, ending in his arrest due to him being a suspected member in an unrelated attack. Even though Simon pleaded he was innocent, everything he said was ignored, but his will was strong enough to summon a Green Lantern ring, albeit, a defective one, to help him break out of jail. Now possessing the powers of the Green Lantern, Simon was able to track down the true owner of the van and bring him to justice with the help of Agent Fed. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Simon eventually teams up with Jessica Cruz to help keep the Earth safe from any danger that comes his way. But one thing that really sets Simon apart from the other Lanterns is he actually possesses two incredibly rare abilities that few Green Lanterns have. One being Emerald Sight, which allows him to see glimpses of the near future, allowing him to prepare for anything that comes his way, and the other being the ability to heal others through sheer willpower. Something that was, thought to be completely impossible until right then. First appearing in 2012's The New 52 FCDB Special Edition #1. Give his story a read for yourself, I'm sure you'll all really like it. Number 4. Guy Gardner. From the Prime Earth universe, we're going to be talking about Guy Gardner, the colorblind, ring-swapping Green Lantern of Sector 2814. Estranged from his father and, most of his family after resigning from the Baltimore Police Department, it's needless to say that Gardner has some underlying daddy issues that he will probably never address. After his brother was shot during a drug bust, Guy rushed him to the hospital in hopes of saving his life. However, he wasn't fast enough. But luckily for him, on his way, he was found by a Green Lantern ring thanks to his overwhelming ability to overcome great fear, and that allowed him to get his brother safely to the hospital. As the only Green Lantern on Earth at that time, Guy had a lot of responsibility on his shoulders. However, not everyone was on his side when it was revealed that the Guardians were secretly sabotaging him from behind the scenes. Gardner was eventually asked by Hal Jordan after the battle against the Third Army to go undercover and join the Red Lantern Corps. And in no time, he actually became their leader and changes almost everything for the better by keeping everyone and everything safe from Atrocitus and allowing the Red Lanterns to cause only justice-based murders. Later, he once again joins forces with the Green Lanterns to defeat Relic, and Guy and the Red Lanterns are given guardianship over Sector 2814 alongside Simon Baz. Check out his New 52 appearance in 2011's Green Lantern Corps Volume 3 Number 1, or if you want to see him in his very first appearance, take a look at 1968's Green Lantern Volume 2 Number 59.
Number 3. The Joker League. In Emperor Joker number 1 of October 2000, the Joker has gained 99.99% of the reality warping powers of the fifth dimensional being, Mr. Mxyzptlk, and he used them to completely warp the world into an insane offshoot of our real world. In this Joker world, he has put together an evil, insane version of the Justice League called the Joker League of Anarchy. The team members include some characters we've seen before, such as Bizarro number 1, Enigma, who's the Riddler, Gravedigger Lad, who is actually Jimmy Olsen, Lois Lane, Harley Quinn, and Poison Ivy. He has also created completely new characters that are wholly original to this story: Ignition, Bounty, Schism, and Scorched. He even has Lex Luthor as a jester. They are basically just the henchmen of this already pretty much all-powerful version of the Joker. Just another way of keeping him entertained, it seems.
At number 2, I'm putting the Injustice League from the video game Injustice: Gods Among Us. Most of us already know how this story goes, but in case you don't, this is one of the cooler and more well-written storylines about an evil alternate version of the Justice League. In most cases on this list, these evil groups are created by an alternate reality, which is always fun but pretty simple to come up with. But this storyline shows a radicalized Superman leading the Justice League to the dark side. And like I said, this isn't because he's an evil version of Superman or one that's possessed by some evil force. He's genuinely turned to evil after the Joker tricks him into killing Lois Lane. So to combat this new unexpected evil force, Batman decides to bring in other members from the Justice League from another universe, and the result is some pretty great fighting gameplay. And right as the game was being released, a comic book series of the same name was also being released in tandem, serving as a prequel to the game, where you can derive general story points from the game itself. Most of the backstory I just explained actually comes from the comics. It's cool to see the video game and comic book worlds working in tandem, and they make a pretty cool new storyline that I figure has to be ranked pretty high on this list.
Number 1. The Crime Syndicate of America. The Crime Syndicate of America hails from the strength-obsessed Earth 3, and is a twisted, evil version of many characters who make up the main universe Justice League of America. Its members include Ultraman in place of Superman, Thomas Wayne Jr., aka Owlman, and Alfred Pennyworth as the Outsider, Superwoman, who was Lois Lane at one point and Donna Troy at another, the cowardly Harold Jordan and vengeful John Stewart, who are both Power Ring, which are evil Green Lanterns at different times, John Allen and John Chambers separately also as Johnny Quick, Atomica, Sea King, Deathstorm, Grid, and John Johns. They come into contact with the main universe many times, and they almost always spell out bad news, as you'd expect from the antithesis to the Justice League of America.
And we'll move on to number 10, which is Firestorm. Ronnie Raymond was a jock of a high school student who was also, funnily enough, an environmentalist. When Ronnie showed up to protest the opening of a new nuclear plant, he met Dr. Martin Stein, a Nobel Prize-winning physicist who worked there. When the Firestorm Matrix reactor malfunctioned thanks to one of Ronnie's compadres, Stein and Raymond were both caught in the radioactive aftermath and somehow found themselves fused together into Firestorm, the Nuclear Man. Now, they are a being with two minds sharing the same body, usually with Raymond taking the lead. Alongside the rather unique one man with two minds thing, Firestorm also gained the ability to transmute any non-organic matter, having complete control over molecules. With this ability, he can do many things. flight, phasing, regeneration, self-sustenance, strength, durability, shapeshifting, energy projection, and absorption, and density manipulation. All of which, as you know, make for an incredibly powerful individual. Number 9. Vixen. Mary McCabe, who is the superhero known as Vixen, is also a successful fashion icon, talk show host, and animal activist, who is able to channel the powers of any animal that has walked or evolved on Earth through the mystical object given to her ancestor by the god Anansi called the Tantu Totem. Originally, it was the Tantu Totem that gave her her abilities, but over time it has been changed. The totem actually just helps hone said abilities. Basically, Vixen has a strong connection to the red, which is a magical thingy that connects all animal life in DC Comics. A few other characters also share a connection to the red, but I think Vixen is definitely one of the coolest. Normally, she uses this power for flight and to enhance her speed, strength, senses, and healing abilities. But she has also sometimes used the poisonous abilities of certain animals and has even been seen to fully transform into animals. Vixen's ability is so wide that she can use the light of an anglerfish to create powerful lasers, use the armor of armored beetles to withstand a punch from Superman, and she can even create a force field using just the energy from the red itself. Number 8. Blue Beetle. The Blue Beetle Scarab is what gives this hero their powers. I say there because the Blue Beetle has been multiple people over the years. Dan Garrett and Ted Kord were the first, with the most recent Blue Beetle being Jamie Reyes, and he will also be the one featured in the DCEU, so I'm gonna mainly focus on him, sorry. Once the Scarab latches onto Reyes' spine, it can manifest various powers. When he's in danger, the Scarab automatically activates and encompasses him in a high-tech suit of blue, beetle-like armor. This suit provides Reyes with superhuman durability and strength, flight with wings that spread out of the back, and speed with rocket boosters. It can also translate both human and alien languages for Reyes. The suit's durability is so high that it is bulletproof and allows Reyes to survive the heat of a rocket launch, re-entering Earth's orbit, and even explosions. The suit can also produce energy blasts from its hands that are powerful enough to discharge Kryptonian radiation and neutralize magic, which, if you don't know, both of those things are quite the feat. The suit can also construct objects out of nanotechnology as well as transform itself into nearly anything. The suit has transformed itself into anything from swords and cannons to a staple gun, which could probably be pretty useful, I think. It can manipulate alien technology and apparently has access to WMDs that are apparently capable of taking out the Spectre, so yeah, don't sleep on Blue Beetle. Number 7. Red Tornado. Originally, Red Tornado was an android created by the supervillain T.O. Morrow, whose name I absolutely hate. But he was made to infiltrate the Justice Society of America. But since then, the android has, well, he's become more than an android, but he's also become a noble superhero and a pretty gosh darn powerful member of the Justice League. Red Tornado basically is an air elemental housed in an android shell. He can create powerful air currents powerful enough to level skyscrapers in seconds. He channels air and wind forces through his arms and legs to produce bursts of cyclone strength winds and high speed forward velocity flight. He can also absorb air, which, I mean, we all absorb air when we breathe, so it's kind of weird. But Red Tornado is also super strong and very durable, enough so that he, or it, can take a missile straight on and come out completely unharmed. A few times, Red Tornado actually managed to become invisible to the human eye due to his high velocity movement, and surprisingly not because he's an elemental. His android form also gives him resistance to various mental powers. He's very cool, but unfortunately not as popular as he should be. Number 6. The Ray. Raymond Terrell was apparently born with a condition that didn't allow him any exposure to sunlight. Or at least, that's what he had been told. It turns out Ray had been lied to. In reality, Ray's real father was Happy Terrell, a World War II hero known as the Ray. So it turns out Raymond was born with tremendous superpowers that only awaken with light exposure. Upon discovering his new powers, he actually went invisible for about 4 years, before saving a friend, turning the assailant invisible, and then restoring them to scare the bejesus out of them. Ray is a being of light and has many abilities as a result. Once his body absorbs natural light, like sunlight or artificial light, he can direct the energy to rearrange molecules into any form, matter, or energy. With the projected energy energy, he can fly, project rays, beams, and bolts of destructive light, and create constructs out of pure light similar to how a Green Lantern can do it. Obviously, he can bend light to make himself or others invisible, but he can also do a similar thing in order to create illusions. And after consuming light energy, he can sustain himself off of it, not needing to eat or drink.
Number 5. Jess Chambers. Jess Chambers is the Flash from Earth 11, who in Future State ended up moving to Earth 0, heading there to help at first, but deciding to stay on Earth 0 permanently. They ended up joining the Future Justice League, and while working alongside their teammates, we saw Jess do something pretty cool. Something I'm not sure I've ever seen another Flash do before, but if you have, I guess let me know in the comments. The Justice League seem to be trapped in another world by the White Martians, who have taken their place and aim to conquer Earth 0. Flash uses their Speed Force senses to determine, based on the vibration of the Earth that they are on, that it's not actually the Justice League's homeworld, it's not Earth 0. In order to take the League home, Jess then shares their power with their teammates, also granting them a connection to the Speed Force and Super Speed temporarily, allowing them to travel through the multiverse together and all return home. Also, for those wondering, Earth 0 is the number for Future States, Reality, and Earth. Number 4. Jay Garrick. Jay Garrick was the first Flash. He actually gained his superpowers from his own experiments. He might not have been the fastest Flash initially, considering that he could travel near the speed of light, which in retrospect now isn't actually that fast compared to some other Flashes, but back in the day that was considered to be pretty impressive. Before we got as crazy as being able to like duplicate yourself with the Speed Force and travel back and forth through time, Jay was also known for being a brilliant scientist. He has even been called on in the past in the original comic series to use his scientific skills to help save the world. And when it comes to making all the right calls, Jay is definitely one of the wisest Flashes that we have in the comics, as he has the most experience. Jay is also one of the best Flashes because, well, he doesn't really overstay his welcome. He ended up retiring as the Flash, but would still make appearances here and there when he was needed, which honestly I think is the best you can do, because as a Flash you kind of can go back into the Speed Force and like pop back out again, but you don't need to stay forever, unlike some Flashes. Looking at you, Barry.
Number 3. The Huntress. First appearing in All-Star Comics issue 69 back in 1977, Helena is a lawyer for Cranston, Grayson, and Wayne, but of course that's not all. Earth 2 is home to the daughter of an older Batman and Catwoman. That's right, when she was only 19 years old, her mother, Selina Kyle, now a retired Catwoman in the future, died in a tragic mishap. Right now, to add insult to injury, this henchman, Silky Cernak, was the reason behind this photo that just popped up that shows Selina Kyle as Catwoman murdering a police officer. Not a great photo, not cool. If TMZ was around, they'd be like, oh my god, trending, BuzzFeed, let's do it. This is wild, right? So of course, Helena was upset and wanted to make things right. So she took a page out of her parents' book and became the Huntress. She went after Silky Smooth Cernak and got him arrested. Awesome. Her mother ended up being okay after all. Don't worry, yeah, it turns out she didn't even kill anybody. The photo was tampered with the whole time. Bad guys doing bad stuff. She kept the suit and eventually wound up on the Justice Society of America. See, if you want the truth, kids, you just gotta get a super suit and, you know, wrap some dudes in nets. It's easy. Just make them talk. It's easy. Number 2. Dina Drake, Black Canary. Flower shop owner by day, superhero at night. The classic life thing. She would work alongside Larry Lance before marrying him. How cute. I mean, he died by the hands of Aquarius, and then that forced Dina to move from Earth 2 to Earth 1 to start a new life, but cute nonetheless. But have no fear, it was in doing this that she met Green Arrow, and they of course hit it off. She has this really awesome ability called the Canary Cry, which is what I do when I, don't get what I want. Where basically she just screams really loud, knocking back her foes. It's a great combo with her fighting skills. Her origins are a little confusing. So before the Crisis storyline, there was a 1983 issue that had Starman taking Black Canary to the Thunderbolt dimension, okay? Where she sees a coffin containing Larry Lance and herself. Yeah, here's the scoop. So in the Justice League of America issue 220, it's revealed that Dina and Lance gave birth to a daughter. That daughter was cursed by a magician. The curse being that the child has an ear-piercing scream, so this baby was brought to the Thunderbolt dimension and then was made to believe that her parents were dead. And finally, number 1, Superboy, also known as Connor Kent or Con-El, made his debut in 1993 Adventures of Superman issue 500. So Superboy was created to essentially be a replacement for Superman, right? And they didn't ask me, how rude. So after Superman died fighting Doomsday, knocking him out, Project Cadmus then used Kryptonian DNA to make Superboy. So he's the son of both Lex Luthor and Clark Kent. What a weird combo. They wanted a new hero, they wanted to feel safe, so why not just make a clone of Superman? Easy peasy, right? It sounds fine. Cadmus wasn't able to get Superman's DNA, so they grabbed a human clone, made it look like him, and it turns out if you put a clone near the grave of a dead superhero, you absorb some powers. So Superman's bioelectric aura was absorbed by the clone and thus was given tactile telekinesis, which means you can simulate the powers of Superman for a small amount of time. He even rocked a high-tech visor to solve that problem, you know? He was cool looking, he knew what he was doing. The Metropolis kid wasn't a fan of being called Superboy also, so watch your mouth out there.
Number 10, the Wonder Twins. Look, they aren't really Justice League members, but they were interns, which is like part of the way there, right? Maybe. If you watched that video about weird DC multiverse characters, then you know these two. The Wonder Twins are two alien siblings from the planet Exor who possess some interesting shape-changing powers. The sister Jaina has the ability to transform into any animal, which is a potentially very useful and powerful ability, and it's always pretty fun. The brother, on the other hand, Zan, is capable of turning into water in any of its states, so liquid, steam, or ice. Again, potentially pretty cool, but more often it's not though. And honestly, he always seems to play second fiddle to his sister anyways. The two were first introduced in Super Friends, where they were much more cheesy and did a whole lot of fist bumping. They still do, but it's sweet now. Number 9, Hawk Girl, a classic. After assisting in the defeat of Barbados and the Dark Knights, Kendra Saunders' Hawk Girl was recruited to join the new Justice League as Hawk Girl, a core member of the team. Nice. While not a totally new character, she did have a fight with Barbados, and that gave her this new nth metal fusion power. This gives her nth metal psychoreactive wings that look totally awesome. They can slice through flesh and are able to completely heal all by themselves. She has been reincarnated so many times and has so much experience that she makes an extremely effective and powerful member of the Justice League. As well as her cool new wings, Kendra also has several powers including enhanced strength, enhanced durability, enhanced vision, accelerated healing, self-sustenance, and has been taught telepathic resistance by Martian Manhunter. Unfortunately, she was one of those members of the League affected by the death of the Justice League thing. But that leads us directly into the next 5 points, so that's good. Number 8, Jace Fox's Batman. Okay, yes, I'm structuring this a little differently. So after the death of the Justice League, 5 legacy characters have been teased to be stepping up into the mantles of their predecessors. Timothy Jace Fox seems to be the one stepping into the role of Batman. First appearing in Dark Knight's Death Metal number 7 last year, he actually took on the role of Batman after Gotham became a police state ruled by the Magistrate, who hunted down masked characters, and Batman seemingly met his demise. That's Bruce Wayne Batman. Jace wears a batsuit very similar to the classic, only with a full face covering. In the art for the new Dark Crisis coming out next month, he seems to just have a regular cowl though. He has created a new bat symbol and has teamed up with Jason Todd Nightwing. He also hums to himself while fighting criminals, which is kinda cute, honestly.
Number 7, Elliot Ness. Elliot Ness becomes the Batman in the Elseworld story Batman Scar the Bat from 1996. The reason why I think Elliot Ness makes a better Batman than Bruce Wayne? Well, because he's based on a real-world character who actually fought to stop criminals in Chicago during the Prohibition era. He was a special agent who was known for taking down Al Capone with the help of his fellow law enforcement team, who were known as the Untouchables. In Scar of the Bat, we see Elliot Ness as a 1920s version of Batman, supposedly the one who inspired the character from the comics, ooh, at least in this version of the story. When Elliot Ness finds he can't do enough within the limits of the law, he becomes a vigilante, taking up the mantle Batman because he fights crime sometimes with a bat. In turn, this weapon is chosen by Ness as Batman to scare criminals like Al Capone, who himself was known for beating those who betrayed him to death with a baseball bat. That's a scene that happens at the beginning of this comic. In the end, Elliot wins the day and hangs up the Batman mantle, allowing one of his colleagues who is on his deathbed to claim to have been Batman so as not to besmirch Ness's name and ensure that the criminals get booked the proper way. Basically avoiding any hearsay, because you know, if you're a vigilante and you try to take someone for justice, people won't be like, but you're a criminal, so it's all thrown out. One of those things. After recounting the truth to his biographer years later, Elliot Ness seemingly dies in his sleep due to a heart failure at his kitchen table, which I believe is the actual way that Elliot Ness died in history. So yeah, I like stories where characters get to be heroes from history, because I like history. Number 6. Jace Fox, aka Timothy Call Me Jace Fox, the son of Lucius Fox and Tanya Fox and brother to Tiffany, Tam, and Luke Fox. This might be a hot take, but I would argue that Jace was a better Batman because he chose to step up to the plate at a time when Bruce Wayne basically couldn't be Batman. So at that time period, he was better since Bruce wasn't even Batman, but was instead the dark detective, having to operate, well, more in the dark, due to being a super wanted criminal. However, Jace saw the importance of the symbol of Batman and decided to take up the mantle in Bruce's place, despite the danger. He might not have as much experience as Batman, but he definitely comes with his own skill set and training backing him up. Jace's Batman in Future State also has access to future tech that current and past Bruce doesn't, because Future State.
Number 5. The Justice Lords. What makes the Justice Lords darker than the other timelines mentioned so far is the fact that the Justice League actually managed to completely rid their world of crime. While an absence of crime would be a positive thing for most, it's actually alluded that this version of the Justice League went to pretty extreme measures in order to accomplish such a feat. Appearing in the Justice League animated series episode A Better World, Lex Luthor has become the President of the United States and decided to just execute the Flash. That didn't really sit well with the Flash's friends, which is why an enraged Superman confronted Luthor in the Oval Office. Realizing he would never reform Luthor and keep him from committing such villainous acts, he incinerated him on the spot with his heat vision. With the President out of the way and a new method devised to deal with villains, the Justice League rechristened themselves the Justice Lords and went about establishing a new world order under their quote-unquote protection. They eventually came into conflict with the Justice League when they tried to instill their totalitarian rule on the other DC universes, but thankfully they were finally stopped by Superman and his pals, which actually included Lex Luthor, who became instrumental in stopping the Justice Lords and stripping them of their power. Check out this episode for yourself in 2003's Justice League Season 2, episode 22 and 23 as well. Number 4. The Injustice League. Back in 1988, we got introduced to a new version of the Justice League known as the Injustice League. This ragtag group consisted entirely of criminals who never actually made it big in their various enterprises, and determined to make it big, they just banded together and became the rather ineffective Injustice League. Major Disaster, Big Stir, Cluemaster, Multi-Man, Clock King, and the Mighty Bruce are what made up the roster. They barely managed to pull off any capers and mostly just got their butts kicked. Oddly enough though, after 2000's Silver Age, the Showcase number 1 came out, it retroactively made 1989's Injustice League the second version of the team. The quote-unquote original team was brought together in the Silver Age by the evil intergalactic Agamemnon, who used Lex Luthor to recruit other villains like Black Manta, Bizarro, and the Joker. This Injustice League was way more effective and even managed to switch minds with the JLA on one occasion. When the Justice League managed to switch back, they erased the memory of the event from the villains' minds completely. Check out these two teams in 1989's Justice League International number 23, or head over to 2000's Silver Age Showcase number 1. Number 3. Injustice Justice League. Now I think everyone can agree that no other timeline has featured more DC character deaths than the Injustice timeline. After the Joker takes virtually everything from Superman, the Man of Steel finally cracks and just kills the Clown Prince of Crime. From there, heroes continue to devolve into their worst selves, with a fair split maintaining their moral codes and principles. In the video game and comic franchise Injustice Gods Among Us, the Justice League still calls themselves by that same name, eventually changing it to the Regime though. But that's about the only similarity between the two universes, because the Injustice universe is about as dark as it can get. Superman loses his cool and just thrusts his hand through the clown's chest after the Joker destroys Metropolis, killing Lois Lane. As you might imagine, this not only kills the Joker but surprises Batman and everyone else around him. Superman decides he is fed up with the old way of doing things and sets out to create a new world order under his totalitarian rule. Superman reforms the League after opposing Batman and many of his other former friends. In the end, it's actually the Dark Knight who succeeds in recruiting Superman from the regular DC universe, who comes in to defeat his darker alter self. Now if you're not familiar with this storyline, check it out for yourself, starting with 2013's Injustice Gods Among Us number 1, or honestly just head back and play through the games one more time. Number 2. The New Reichman. Ever wonder what would happen if Superman didn't crash land in Kansas and instead he crash landed in, I don't know, Germany? Well, wonder no longer, because on Earth 10 that is the reality. On Earth 10, the Germans used Superman, known as Overman in this universe, to win World War II and basically take over the world. As a champion of Germania and the leader of the New Reichman, Overman is accompanied by Brunhilde, Earth 10's Wonder Woman, Leatherwing aka Batman, Blitzen aka The Flash, The Martian, Martian Manhunter, Underwater Man aka Aquaman, and Overgirl aka Supergirl, who was unfortunately killed in battle. Alongside the German forces, Overman conquered the world in less than 20 years, after which he decided to leave the Earth for a while. 3 years later, he returned with a clear head and saw all of the damage he helped cause and became an advocate against all that he once stood for, well, still working alongside them for some reason. Eventually, German scientists used callus cells to create a clone of him known as Overgirl that Overman loved like family. However, she died not too long after her creation, and this hit him hard. Inconsolable and grief-stricken, Overman leaked some precious information to the freedom fighters that resulted in the demise of the new Reichman and Metropolis as well. Check out probably one of the saddest Superman stories I have ever heard, starting with 2015's The Multiversity Guidebook, number 1. And number 1, the Crime Syndicate of America. Consisting of Ultraman, Owlman, Superwoman, Johnny Quick, and the Power Ring, the Crime Syndicate of America is the first alternate version of the Justice League to ever come to life following the events of Crisis on Infinite Earths. That event erased the multiverse but left the Antimatter universe, also known as the Quardian universe within DC's continuity. Within the Antimatter universe, the Crime Syndicate existed as an evil version of our favorite superheroes, only they were far more dastardly than their previous versions. With virtually no one to oppose them, they managed to establish and maintain control over a large portion of their Earth. Eventually they grew bored of their Earth and the Crime Syndicate began kidnapping people from the 52 multiverse matter-based worlds and were visited by our Justice League to retrieve the people from the Justice League Earth that had been kidnapped. Fast forward past some pretty sweet fights and we see Owlman along with Superwoman and Ultraman banished to a prison subdimension while Johnny Quick and the current Power Ring were captured. Highly recommend you check out the storyline for yourself, so check it all out in their first appearance in 2000's JLA Earth number 2.